Hello, and welcome to the Windows 2003 Server Series, Configuring and Managing Shared Printers. In this video, I will show you how to install printers, how to share printers, and how to manage those shared printers. In Windows 2003 Server, shared printers are considered a print server role, and we can always look at our roles by going to the Start menu, going up to Programs, going to Administrative Tools, and then to Manage Your Server. And you'll see right now it is not an installed role. If we go up to Add or Remove Roles, you will see that the Print Server role is actually listed right there. Now we can go through and configure it this way, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it doesn't do much except for just add a printer. The best way to go ahead and actually install this role is just to go ahead and set up a printer yourself, and then as soon as you go to share that printer, it automatically installs the Print Server role. So we're going to do it that way. We're going to go Cancel here, and we're going to go ahead and close this up. So now we're going to go down to the Start menu. We're going to go to Settings, and we're going to go to Printers and Faxes. And we click on that, it brings up the Printers and Faxes dialog box, and we're going to go ahead and maximize that. And we've got the Add Printer Wizard. Now you'll see we do not have any printers currently installed. So we're going to go ahead and install a printer, and then we're going to go ahead and share that printer. So in order to install a printer, we just have to double click on the Add Printer Wizard, and it brings up the Welcome to the Add Printer Wizard dialog box. And from here we can just click Next. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and set up a local printer, and I do not want it to automatically detect. If I had a printer attached to this computer, it would actually automatically detect that printer and install the drivers for me. I do not have one installed, so what I'm going to do is just to set one up and not let it detect it, so I can actually put any printer on there just for testing purposes. So we're going to go ahead and say local printer attached to this computer, click Next, and I'm going to say it's on the LPT1 port, which is usually standard if it's connected to the parallel port. And then we're going to click Next, and it's going to give me some choices of what I want to install. So for this one, what I'm going to do for this local printer is going to install an HP 895 CSC just to show you how it's done. Click Next. We're going to say printer name yes, that's fine. And then here it asks us, do we want to share this printer or not? And if we want to share it, we just click this and it will go ahead and put a shared name in there, which we can change. Just put it to HP 895 if we want. And it will automatically share that printer. Or we can say do not share this printer, we can share it later. And I'll show you how to do that now. So we're going to just go ahead and click Next. And it says, do we want to print a test page? Well, since I don't really have a printer hooked up, I'm going to say no on that. But you can just to make sure that the communications with that printer is working after you successfully install that printer. So we're going to click Next, and then it's going to give us the summary of what we're doing. And when we click Finish, it's going to go through a little process and install some drivers. And it only takes a second or two here, so I'm just going to bear with me. There we go. And now we have our first printer. And you'll notice it's our default printer because it's got this little black checkbox there. If we had more than one printer, we could set a different printer as default, and we'll do that in a minute too. So right now we've got one printer installed, and now we just want to share it. So in order to share this printer, we just have to do a right mouse button click on it, go down to the Sharing menu item, which brings up the actual properties page for this printer. And you will see that the Sharing tab is already selected for us. And all we have to do to share this printer is click on this dialog box here, Share this printer. And then we can change the share name if we'd like, but 895 is just fine, HP 895, and just click Apply. And that will share the printer. And when we click OK, you will see it's got a little hand icon underneath the printer, meaning that it is a shared printer. And to prove that, we can also just look at it through the network. So we're going to go ahead and minimize this, and we're going to go through the network, entire network, Microsoft Windows, test group, and the test server. And you will see 895 is now a shared printer. It shows up for other users to use. If they're using Windows XP as a client, it will automatically install the driver for them because it can use the same driver as Windows 2003 Server. And in a minute I will show you how to install additional drivers that will automatically be installed for lower-end clients like Windows 98 or Windows 95 or even all the way back to Windows NT 4.0 if you'd like to. So that shows that it's a shared printer. And now if we close this up, we can actually go back to the Start menu, go to Programs, Administrative Tools, and Manage Your Server. And you will see that this server now has the Print Server role already installed. And you can actually manage it from here if you'd like to, but just by clicking on this Open Printers and Faxes, well, all it does is bring up the dialog box that we already had open. So that's how you share a printer. So we're going to close that up and maximize that again. So now that you've learned how to create a local printer and share that printer, I want to teach you how to do two more types of printers. One is going to be a networked printer. It's attached to another server, and the other one is going to be a TCP/IP printer, in which case we have to create a TCP/IP port first, and then we can print through that. So we're going to go ahead and do Add a Printer, and we're going to click Next. And instead of doing a local printer this time, we're going to go ahead and do a network printer, and click Next. This gives us three options. One is we can browse for that printer. Two is we can go ahead and type in the actual UNC path name to that printer. And three is we could actually print to a web-based printer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do Browse for a Printer first, and click Next. And the first floor printer here you're going to see is actually my TCP/IP printer, so we're not going to do that one now, we're going to do that one next. You're going to see on our test server here, if we open that up, you'll see the actual share that we already made. But we're going to go over to the test client here, and you're going to see that I have an HP 2000C installed over there, and we're going to install that one on this server now. So we're going to go ahead and click Next. And it's going to say, you're about to automatically install drivers from another machine. Do you trust it that it doesn't have viruses? And since this is my local machine and I've set it up, I am pretty sure I don't have a virus over there. So I don't want to transfer it to my server, so you want to make sure that you trust the print server you're getting those actual printers from. Because if it was a virus on there, it would transfer to your server. So we're just going to go ahead and click Yes. And then it's going to ask if I want it to be a default printer, and no, I do not. I'm going to leave my local one as my default, and click Next. It gives us a summary page, in which case we just click Finish, and we now have another printer installed on our server. So now we're going to move on to the last type of printer I want to demonstrate installation, and that's a TCP/IP printer. So we're going to go to Add Printers, and we're going to go Next. And now you would think, since it's a TCP/IP based printer, which is a network printer, we would go through network printing, but we do not. We actually have to create a local TCP/IP port first, and then we print that local TCP/IP port, which then sends the print job to the networked printer. So that can be a little confusing for people new to networking and new to setting up printers, and it's like that in Windows 2000 and Windows 2003 servers. So we're just going to go ahead and click Next, and XP actually. So we don't want to use an LPT port. What we have to do is we have to create a new port. And the way we do that is we go down here and say Create New Port, and it's not going to be a local port, it's going to be a TCP/IP port. So when we click on that and click Next, it brings up the Add New Port wizard. And all we have to do is click Next, and it asks us for that either the printer's name or IP address. And we're going to go by IP address here. I just have it 10.10.10.10, and then a port name. And we can leave it at that, or we could actually change it to Xerox, something that we understand for that port. And then we can go ahead and click Next. And what it's doing now is it's creating that actual LPR port locally on this server. And we click Finish now. It's a standard port. And now we can go ahead and click on the drivers we want to install for that printer, and we'll be all set. So we're going to go down to Xerox. I'm going to do it to be the DocuCenter 230. And we're going to go ahead and select Next. And we can leave the printer name as just fine. We're not going to have that as our default. So we'll click Next. And we're going to just go ahead and share this one. And we're going to call it Xerox Doc. That's fine. And click Next, and we're not going to worry about a location or a comment. And finish, no test page, no. And then when we finish, it will install the drivers for that DC230, and there. Now we have a TCP/IP printer installed, the Xerox DocuCenter 230. So now I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to set the default printer on that particular server. So right now you'll see that the 895 CSC is the default printer on this server. All we have to do is come over to the DocuCenter, right mouse button click on it, and say Set as Default Printer. Now whenever I print documents by default, it goes to this printer as opposed to the local printer. So now we have successfully installed 3 different types of printers on this server, 2 of which are shared, and 1 was shared from another server. And when we installed this particular printer, if you'll remember right, the drivers automatically installed from that server to our client. And that's what's going to happen if anybody tries to connect to these 2 printers to this server with either Windows XP, Windows 2000, or Windows 2003 clients. Well, what about Windows 95, Windows 98, and NT40? Well, we can actually install those drivers on here also, and then it will automatically install those for those clients too. So we'll just go ahead and right click on the Xerox, and we go to the Sharing tab again, and down here there's a spot to install additional drivers. And when we click on additional drivers, you will see we have the option of installing Itanium drivers. We can install drivers for Windows 95, Windows 98, and Windows Millennium Edition, and Windows NT40 if we want to. So what we're going to do is we're going to install some drivers for this series of class of clients, 95, 98, and Millennium, by clicking on the box here and clicking OK. And when we do that, it will say, okay, where are these drivers you want to use? And we'll click Browse, and I just happen to have the 95 drivers available. I downloaded from the internet, from Xerox's website, for those clients, and click OK. And it will say, okay, we found drivers for the 230, and click OK. And it will install those drivers now, and boom, we're done. And when we click Close now, it doesn't look any different, but now Windows 95, Windows 98, and Windows Millennium Edition clients that connect to this server to print to that printer will have their drivers automatically installed for you. You won't have to take a driver's disk with you to those clients. So now that we have our printer successfully installed and shared, let's look at some of the things we can do to manage those printers. So we're going to right-click on our printer and go down to Properties, and that brings up the General tab on the device. And you will see that it gives you some information. It allows you to change printing preferences and print a test page if you'd like. We can also look at the port it's using. In this case, it's the Xerox port we created. We can also change that port if we wanted, just say if we move the printer to a COM port. Another great thing is we can enable printer pooling. Printer pooling gives you the ability to take two exact same printers. Let's just say that this file port was another printer of Xerox capability, the same kind of printer, and can use the same driver. I can select them both into a pool. Now what will happen is if someone prints to this printer on my server, it will automatically look at these two printers to see which one's the least busy and send the job to that one, a way of load balancing your print jobs. So that is a neat feature. And then we can always go over to the Advanced tab over here, and we can set time. Like if I don't want this printer available for everyone all day long, I can set it just so it's available during work hours only, say from 8 a.m. till 6 at night, 5 at night. So now that printer is only available during those hours. You cannot print to it after hours. I can also set some general options here, whether it prints immediately or if it spools the entire job before it prints. Then, of course, there's the Security tab. And this is where you can set access rights depending on who has rights to the printer. Like right now, you'll see the Everyone group has the ability to print. Well, let's say I don't want that. I don't want everyone to be able to print to this printer. I can just remove the Everyone group, and then I can add who I want. And I'm just going to give Todd the rights to print to this printer. And when I select that, I have Todd here now, and he has the ability to print to it. He can't manage the printer, he cannot manage documents, and he doesn't have any special permissions. He can just print to it. But my power users, of course, can actually manage the printers, and so can my administrators. So that's how you set some of the security options on your printers. And those are most of the management features you will use. There are quite a few more, but I'll let you fumble through those and find them yourself. So we're just going to go ahead and click Cancel there, and go back to our printers page. So now that you've seen how to manage an individual printer in Windows 2003 Server, let's look at some of the properties in the print server itself. In order to get to that, we go through the File menu, and we go to Server Properties. And this brings up a dialog box that first shows you the different paper sizes available to your printers. And you can create a custom one if you needed to. You can also look at all the ports that are available for your printers. You can add new ports from here, TCP/IP port if you wish. You can delete ports you're not using. And you can reconfigure ports. Like if I change the Xerox IP address, I can come in here and change it right there. So there's some of the things you can do with the ports page. The drivers page shows you all the drivers installed on your server. And we installed all these today, including the 95 driver for the Xerox. And we can add new drivers, remove them, reinstall them if we need to. We can even look at the properties of individual drivers if we wanted to. It shows me the version of the driver, where the driver path is, and the different files associated with the driver disk. And we can actually go ahead and look at the properties of individual files if I need to see the versions and whatnot right from there. And the last tab is the Advanced tab. And the Advanced tab gives me the option to change my print spool folder if I want to. Or I can actually look at all the different things that get thrown into my event viewer. Like by default, it goes ahead and logs information events, warning events, and error events. Well, I may only want to see the error events because this might be filling up my event viewer, especially if I have a lot of people printing to this server. So I could just take those off if I wish to. So that pretty much covers all the server property options available to you in Windows 2003 Server. So now you have learned how to install new printers in Windows 2003 Server, how to share those printers, and how to manage those printers. Well, I hope this video has been informative for you. Thank you.